and welcome to this week's episode of Commerce Unpacked. I'm Gina Ellison, the Director of Partner Marketing here at ShipBob. We're so excited to have Larry Kim on today. He is the founder and CEO of Customer.ai, and he is going to unpack how to build a better omnichannel experience with visitor identification. So give us a moment while we get these slides up. Sorry about that. Great, cool. So once again, we are back for another episode, this one on building a better omnichannel experience with visitor identification. For those of you who are new, this event is presented by ShipBob. We help brands fulfill their everything orders everywhere. So it's one fulfillment platform, hundreds of sales channels and integrations from Shopify to TikTok to NetSuite, over 50 fulfillment centers worldwide across North America, Europe, and Australia. And we're trusted by thousands of the fastest growing D2C brands, which you'll see here. So I'm going to hand it off to Larry Kim, again, the founder and CEO of Customer.ai. And he's going to take you through how to use his platform to leverage identity data to improve your omnichannel experience. Take it away, Larry.
Awesome. And I just wanted to make sure that you can see my screen here. Yes. Okay. Awesome. So again, excited to be here. We're talking about visitor identification, how this can be used to sell more of your products to your target market. And just a little bit about me. I'm also known as the founder of Customers.ai, and also another company called WordStream, which I started in my 20s. This was a pay-per-click management product that grew from 0 to 55 million in revenues. It was a leader in the category of search engine email search engine campaign automation, and that was acquired by Gannett in 2018 for about $150 million. Enough about me. We're talking about Customers.ai, and we work with about 1,000 major e-commerce and D2C brands in terms of helping them grow their businesses using something called website visitor identification technologies, and that's what we're talking about today. And I guess in terms of why does this matter? Sort of taking a step back in terms of like the high level picture, you've got a situation where it's tough, like things that technologies that merchants have historically relied on, such as like third-party cookies, which power a lot of different types of campaigns that e-commerce and D2C companies run, as well like ad campaigns on Facebook or Google. These are they're not completely dead, but they're like kind of dying this very slow death over the last 4 years, being eliminated from iOS, Firefox, and even some of Chrome, but not all of Chrome at the moment. And so, at a high level, you can think of Customers.ai as sort of a replacement for a lot of the use cases that you used to be able to do using third-party cookies, but in a first-party data compliant way. Simply put, we help you figure out more of the people who are visiting your website, and that of course has an enormous impact on sales and conversion rate, reducing bounce rates and giving you chances to convert the customers that you work so hard to drive to your website. In a in a high level view of this technology, it sounds quite magical if you've never heard of it before. It allows us to provide you with the ability to augment your first-party website visitor data with additional information, including the identity, for example, the email, the phone numbers, secondary emails, addresses, and other information about the first-party website visitors to your website. And just a couple of important points here. You don't have to use some annoying pop-up that you have to fill out, or like there's no spinning the wheel quiz or anything like this. Like we just provide you the information kind of seamlessly in the background, and we can ID approximately 25% of people who visit your website, regardless of whether or not they fill out any forms. And I think you might be wondering, like, how the heck is this possible, and is it legal? Well, absolutely. I am not a criminal. This is a legal business. The way it works is we have a network of partners. Perhaps you've visited the New York Times, and it says something like, "Hey, Larry, you're out of free articles. Sign up for a free account to to get access to 20 free articles." That is known as a co-reg network, and this is clearly disclosed in the terms of services of these types of companies. And what happens is that it's actually spelled out here, like they're sharing the login data, like the emails, as well as some information about your device with companies like Customers.ai, so that we can share that information with you, the merchants. And even just to give you some context here, like even in GDPR obsessed France, like their primary website, like it's like a left-wing newspaper, Le Monde, which is very snooty and doesn't like anything that violates privacy. Like what you can see here is that they too leverage this type of technology. And I think the most important key here is disclosure. That it's not cool if you just do this stuff secretly, but if you fully disclose like that is the key. All right, so back to our story. We're talking about. I was telling you that third-party cookies are kind of on their way out, more than 50%, 60% on the way out. And in terms of how that impacts marketers, e-commerce and D2C businesses, I think that the major impact here had to do with the Facebook and Google ad pixels, basically. Like that really was the real thing that everyone was using for the last decade to drive returns, and that is the thing that is being crippled by this change. And what you might not know about the Google and Facebook ad pixel, that you have on your website, you might not realize that it was doing a lot of kind of sneaky things. It wasn't just for conversion tracking, but it was also phoning home like all of the data, on your website, to the Google or Facebook mothership to kind of restore to provide this ability to do ad remarketing. So that was very good. Like this ability to target ads to people who didn't buy the products and services that you were hoping for them to buy. That was actually the most effective ad format ever. But that whole thing requires third-party cookies because it's based on the user who visits your website being simultaneously logged into either Facebook or Gmail. And so that's how that worked. And so a lot of this really, really valuable use cases are nearly completely dead, although not 100% dead. They're like 70% dead at the moment. And what we're saying is like, those were such great use cases. Why don't we just bring them back, but in a way that's using first-party data only and is fully compliant with all the regulatory requirements. And so, my number one tip here is just to advocate for owning your own tracking pixel. So not the Google pixel, not the Facebook pixel. Like you should actually have your own ID pixel on your merchant site to fully enrich and provide a full understanding of your website visitors, which is your first party data. It's your valuable data. We're not providing you like a list of like, people with a certain income or blah, blah, blah. Like this is not a random list. Like we're only augmenting your first party data. And this is, the question is like, since that's so valuable now, because you can't, it's harder to just buy that information, without third-party cookies. Then it's important that you have a full understanding of the people who are visiting your website. The challenges, of course, if we're limited to first-party data, it's typically 3, 4, 5, low, mid to mid single digits of people typically purchase the products from e-commerce websites. It's there could be 90, 95, 97% of people who don't purchase, and so those are people who, because they haven't filled out the forms, you don't know who those people are, and that's pretty annoying, because you might have paid money to drive them to your website through ads or other marketing campaigns. And so using the power of first-party pixel, it's very simple. You just put this thing on your website. It starts IDing the people who visit your website, and then populating that in a dashboard, so that you can kind of fully understand, who these people are. And it's not just the identity. Like, we can also, kind of enumerate their activity, like how much time on site, and what pages did they view, and what was their customer journey, and how does that amount of activity like score in terms of their intent level, and we could provide all that information pretty seamlessly. Another thing that we do is filling in the blanks with additional enrichment data. Conceptually, I'm sure you're familiar with how Google Analytics is able to enrich the data of your website visitors with location data. So like, it might tell you what country this visitor came from, or what city, or what state. We're able to take this enrichment of your first party data a little further by providing both comprehensive B2B and B2C enrichment data. So in terms of like their interests, their identity, their family status, their credit profile, etc. If applicable, we can also provide information about their business identity in terms of what company do they work for, what's the revenue of those businesses, etc. So it's really providing a very high resolution understanding of the types of people who are visiting your website. And we then provide all the connector pipes to make sure that data becomes accessible wherever it is that you use that data. For D2C and e-commerce folks, it's typically Klaviyo or Shopify or Magento, and we have like or other e-commerce CRMs, and we can provide seamless integration with those products by just one click, and we can send that information over in real time. And so that's number one tip, was just, you really got to understand deeply who's visiting your website and collecting all that information. But then you might be asking me, well, what's the point of having all this information? Which is, I think it's a fair question. And the answer is, it's not to just like look at it or to sit on it. It's to use the data. So using this enriched data from your first party, persistent identification capabilities, what we can then do is use that data to power, to first create audience segmentations, and then to create those different automations that then connect those different audience segmentations to actions. This is where it gets very exciting, I think. And that is to say that, we have an advanced audience builder. There's 2 ways to segment your website visitors. It can be based on the activities that they've conducted. For example, like, are they, a repeat visitor, or are they like a super engaged visitor in terms of like, they've opened so many emails, or they've visited so many pages, or they've scrolled or clicked a certain amount, or that they visited or did not visit certain pages during their session, okay? And the other way that we can segment is through the identity of that person. So like, people with high credit scores, low credit scores, like, you can create segmentations, because we not only provide you the identity, we also enrich that understanding. So using this power of segmentation, you can then direct different segmentations to different actions. Typically, the types of actions that we see is the number one is just emailing. So somebody visits the product page, goes to the checkout, but unfortunately doesn't log in and doesn't have an account, so you don't know who that person is. Maybe you put some filters like, they have to be on the site for more than 3 minutes or something like that. That could be a segmentation that you create and that gets automatically populated, and you could direct that to, say, like an automated cart abandonment emailing automation, and those typically, that's printing money. Other types of integrations, it could be you create a segmentation for a repeat visitor. So that would be show me people who repeat visited and purchased in the last 90 days. Like you can create those segmentations using these rule builders, and maybe for those people you send a different email. Like it could be an upsell sequence rather than kind of a welcome sequence. Or a cart abandonment sequence. So it's a welcome back sequence, basically. There's other actions that we can do other than emailing. One of them would be sending data to an ad platform. So sending like this information that we've collected on your behalf to Facebook or Google or TikTok for remarketing. Another action could be sending postcards, like snail mail postcards, like in the mail. And remember, we enrich the data of your website visitors to include, mailing address. And so we can, send that data to your postcard provider, and send them information about some kind of sale. Other popular integrations include Slack integrations. So this could be like a segmentation where you look for people who purchased recently, but then visit the return page or something like this, right? Because you can specify, they browse which pages in what order, etc. And those you could send directly to a Slack channel to your customer service team to have them more proactively follow up rather than just get a return notice. And this is what I'm trying to share with you here. Like we provide the user journey of every click, every URL, and you can see here like they visited the site. This is someone we ID'd, Jamie Morrison at me.com, and we sent them an email, and then they ended up buying the thing. So I think you can see how this is pretty powerful. It's just automated, and once you set it up, it takes a few minutes to set up. It can be quite powerful. My last tip today has to do with using all of this valuable first-party data that we are enriching on your behalf to restore Facebook ad, like meta ad remarketing, which is a use case that was the most valuable of all the advertising use cases, but has been degraded significantly over the last 4 years due to changes in Chrome, Safari, and iOS. Remarketing is the crown jewel of ad targeting because typically if somebody is on your website, that means that they've heard of you and that they're in market for the products that you're selling. And so those two facts make the people 2 to 3 times more likely to convert into a paying customer versus new people who haven't heard of you in the past. And what we see when we crunch our numbers is that remarketing audiences tend to engage and convert at a rate of 2 to 3 times higher than the non-remarketing audiences. The challenge is, of course, the death of third-party cookies, and especially iOS, Firefox, Chrome. What's happening is that people are visiting your website. Your website has the Facebook ad script on it, but like it's like Facebook the meta script is being either deleted or ignored by iOS, Firefox, etc. And so your ability to reconnect with that audience, it's still there a little bit because Chrome still is sort of working a little bit, but the universe of targetable people is substantially smaller than it was, say, 4 years ago. And so what we can do here to get you back in business is that, remember, like we're IDing everybody who securely IDing everyone who visits your website, we can encrypt and enrich that information, and then using a server connection, send that audience data back to Meta ads, so that it doesn't go through the Firefox or the iOS connections, which are broken, and kind of restoring this ability to do remarketing like it was 4 years ago, and also drive that kind of ROI. Those audiences will either show up directly in your Meta Ads Audience Manager, and we can also send it through something called CAPI, which stands for Facebook's Conversion API, and that is, since the death of third-party cookies, Meta has kind of changed their ad targeting to something called Audience Plus, and if you send data back through CAPI, we can train the Audience Plus targeting algorithm to better understand who your best prospects are. AI targeting is like GeiGo, garbage in, garbage out. If very little signal is getting to the ad manager, then you're going to have garbage results. If you're sending detailed and accurate and high volume of information, it just means you'll get to the best result faster. And even if you're installing a CAPI that's kind of the default CAPI in Shopify, that only sends data on the conversion data. We can also send all this additional information about the users who haven't yet converted, which actually are the best targets for remarketing, if that makes sense. So we think this is a very valuable offering. And this is what I'm talking about here in terms of restoring your CAPI signal quality score. So in ad managers, there's something known as a signal quality score for your ad account. Typically, if you don't have a pre-existing CAPI system installed, you'll probably have like 2 or 3 out of 10. If you have the default Shopify CAPI installed, it'll be probably somewhere like 4 and 5 out of 10. And if you install us on top of the default CAPI, signal booster from Shopify, we can take that up another 2-3 points to 8 or 9 out of 10. And of course, the low signaling back to Meta is kind of like a tax on not having data versus having a reward for sending back good quality and quantity of data, a reward in the form, or a tax in the form of the performance of your ad campaigns. So that's all I had to talk about today. Those are my 3 use cases. It's like we think there's a big change here with third-party cookies going away. We've developed some really interesting, powerful, compliant solutions for identity that is kind of restricted to a first-party context, allowing you to then get the most of the data from your first-party website visitors, and then, as I've shown you today, leverage that not just for the purposes of data enrichment, but also to power sophisticated email ads and other channels like postcards, Slack, other types of automations to grow your business. At this point, we can take questions. Any questions at all?
Hi, Larry. Jumping back in here. Thank you so much. That was so insightful. We hear so many brands still trying to piece together ways that they can build a more comprehensive, customer-focused acquisition strategy, especially since prices to acquire customers are ever on the rise. I have a few questions that have come in as well that I kind of wanted to highlight. So you talked about the removal of this personal identity information and cookies. Google just pushed their third-party cookie deprecation back again. What does that mean for e-commerce marketers? Does this mean it's going to be officially killed? I know that there's been lots of changes with the opt-in permissions and everything like that, but I'd love to hear from the expert.
Sure. So Google is kind of he's kind of the laggard in terms of deleting of third-party cookies, because they have this ad empire, so they've kind of been dragging their feet. The important thing to notice is that not everyone uses Chrome. they have 40% market share or something, 50% market share, because there's a high possibility that people are also using iOS, right? So iOS makes third-party cookies opt in versus opt out. Right? So you have to click on that button that says, do you want to allow this app to track you? And most people say no. So basically, yes, it is true that Google has kind of pushed out the sunsetting deadline by another, call it six or more months. But I think they've indicated that they are going away. It's just a matter of like the exact timing, and they've already gone away on other competing platforms like iOS, Firefox, etc. So I think this is I'm kind of okay with this. Like it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a first party data strategy, but it does mean that you have still a little bit of time, because there's still that small amount of signal coming through from people who are using Chrome but not using iOS. Any questions about that?
Yeah, I mean, why do you think marketers haven't focused, more on first-party data? Do you think it was like an over-reliance on third-party data, and it's kind of just was so easy that learning or building these operational protocols to collect that data kind of became too expensive or too complicated? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Nobody understands what third-party cookies are and how they're used. And it's not really their fault, because like Facebook, the way that people were using third-party data was advertising, okay, and attribution of that advertising. And people didn't fully understand how important that third-party cookie was. But in their defense, Google and Facebook weren't exactly disclosing how that third-party data was being used to power remarketing, to power interest-based or behavioral-based ad targeting. So like it's kind of like the situation where these advertisers I speak to, they don't even know that, like, when we look at their retargeting audiences, they don't even realize that the signal strength has degraded by 60-70% over the last 3-4 years. Like they intuitively they know, like, the percentage of my ad spend going to remarketing is down a lot, but they can't put a figure on why that is. And so, like, well, the reason is because these browsers are not firing the ad pixel anymore, right? So it's just, I think there's just there's not a lot of speakers out there trying to explain how this works, and I think this is an education challenge, like that they don't know what's going to happen, and because Chrome still commands like a 40% market share or whatever, it hasn't fully broken yet for them to raise the alarm. Is that making sense?
Totally. And I want to squeeze in one more question here, because I think one of the biggest challenges brands have, especially when migrating off their primary channel being Shopify to Amazon, TikTok, what have you, we're seeing an increase of brands make it a priority to go omni-channel. And you kind of showed how Customer.ai can help collect first-party data to create those omni-channel workflows. Can you give a couple of examples on how an e-commerce brand might use this, and how this workflow could be relevant to their own strategy?
So I think that movement to go omni-channel, like, this is a very important movement, and I think your customers are all over this. And my suggestion here is that you have to be careful, because some of these merchant platforms like TikTok, they're just trying to keep all the e-commerce people in the dark, and they don't necessarily share all the information about who's buying what, by having a first party data strategy in place, it kind of mitigates some of the what would you call that, the closing of the data the reduction in visibility of customer data, that is kind of the downside of some of those channels that you mentioned. But But if you have both, if you're using like TikTok and Customers AI, then you have your cake and eat it too. You've got better distribution, better reach, as well as the first party data. So it's kind of, having the best of both worlds.
Well, there you have it. Have your cake and eat it too, all with Customers AI. Larry, thanks so much for spending part of your afternoon with us. The recordings will be available in your inbox so you can rewatch, but definitely take advantage of this special offer and reach out to Larry if you have any questions. Have a great afternoon, everyone.